What documentary is a must-see? The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. There was so much normal life despite the war and Holocaust, it was too easy for regular people to ignore the horrors. The rise was so slow and insidious, by the time people realized how bad things were it was too late. Keep sweet, pray and obey. This is a fairly recent one covering FLDS and religious splinter groups that abused women and children for decades with the full cooperation of the authorities. Runners-up: Jimmy Savile, The British Horror Story. Again, it was too easy for a predator to harm kids right in the open. The Keepers. It's a deep dive into the power and influence of the Catholic Church in Baltimore. For something shorter and lighter, The Movies That Made Us. Fun facts and the process of how a lot of great films were made. Think it has been noted that Morgan Spurlock, at least at the time of making Super Size Me, was also a pretty chronic alcoholic and was drinking pretty heavily while making the movie. A lot of people have said that this, along with other stuff not shown on camera, had just as much of a terrible effect on his health as eating McDonald's every day did. History Channel series The Men Who Built America, 2012. It covers Cornelius Vanderbilt, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, George Westinghouse, Henry Ford, and others. This was back in the day when big money could buy politicians and their decisions. Sound familiar? From Rockefeller snatching up land for railroad lines whether the owners wanted to sell, or not, to Standard Oil becoming a monopoly and dumping waste products from kerosene manufacture into the river. It not only covers the accomplishments of these men, but their unethical and sometimes illegal means. Edison wanted DC power to be the standard, he was up against Westinghouse and Tesla with AC, so he electrocuted a fucking elephant as a publicity stunt. It cost Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Morgan a fortune to get McKinley elected president. Shame he was assassinated, they lost a bundle. The booze, bets, and sex that made America was really good also. Talks about Jack Daniel, the first condoms, the NYC numbers game that became the state lotto, a bit on Vegas, and popularizing cigarettes over pipes. If you're a horror fan. Horror Noir. In Search of Darkness 1, 2, and 3. Machete Maidens Unleashed. 2 Macabre, The Making of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Slice and Dice. VHS Nasty. Screaming in High Heels. Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue. The History of Metla and Horror. If you're a sci-fi fan. In Search of Tomorrow. If you're a Ghostbusters fan. Cleaning Up the Town. If you're interested in America's racist past. Nazi America, A Secret History. Ku Klux Klan, A Secret History. Who put the Klan in the Ku Klux Klan? The Long Shadow. I Am Not Your Negro. If you're interested in nuclear weapons. Atomic Home Front. Trinity and Beyond. The Man Who Saved the World. White Light, Black Rain. The Atomic Cafe. Atomic, Living in Dread and Promise. 0 Days. Command and Control. If you're interested in video games from the 80s and 90s. Console Wars. This Guy Docs. Hot Coffee. It's important to watch for a number of reasons. It's about the story everyone knows about the case that was used as propaganda to persuade the average American citizen that limiting their own rights by supporting tort reform was important so sad megacorporations wouldn't have to waste their time dealing with the people that they wronged. I remember when this incident happened. This woman was mocked mercilessly. I, too, was like, yeah, no shit, coffee is hot. What did she expect? Then, I saw this documentary. Good grief, did this woman suffer, and it was discovered that McDonald's was heating their coffee way above acceptable levels. I second your recommendation. Not everything is what it initially seems to be, kids. What's insane to me is I remember hearing about this in grade school and everyone was so mad that a lady was suing because coffee was hot. I didn't find out until like 3 years ago that this happened in my hometown. What that poor lady went through, and she wasn't even trying to exploit it, that our local news didn't even talk about it. As a European kid of the 90s, this story was your quintessential Americans are so dumb and litigious story. Then I heard this podcast about it. https://podcast.apple.com/ca/podcast/the-hot-coffee-hotels/id138000439?? I can't believe we were so ready to believe these dumb PR spins. That picture of her injuries, yuck. Don't care to see that again. Movies that made us is so well done. I will never forget the picture of her thighs basically fused together. What that poor lady went through, and then to be pilloried in the square of public opinion. Yeesh. We were tricked. The only documentary that has ever entirely changed my mind on a subject is Blackfish. And I'm not the only one, because this documentary changed the world, and changed the way an entire industry operates. It got rid of certain theme parks, and aquariums operate in an entirely different way. They used to have dolphin shows. Now it's entirely rescue dolphins, and they don't do shows. It's all educational. If you haven't seen Blackfish, it's worth a watch. If for nothing else, to see how it used to be. Nowadays most younger people already had this mindset. But it took this documentary to change us older people's mindset. This is the right answer. This one documentary decreased SeaWorld's stock by over 80% in 2 years. Absolute proof of the power of filmmaking, and one of the greatest documentaries of all time. Would also recommend The Cove if you were moved by Blackfish. It stopped me from ever wanting to swim with dolphins. Same here. It really opened my mind about a thing I didn't even have an opinion on. I just never thought about it. My octopus teacher got me to stop eating them. I worked with a woman who was one of the trainers attacked by one of the whales in the documentary. We worked at Lowe's together, and the documentary was just coming out. I heard her side of the story before seeing the movie AMD. It's mind-blowing. Fathead. Currently on YouTube in its entirety. Everyone know the movie Super Size Me, where a guy eats nothing but super-size McDonald's and gains a bunch of weight and becomes horrifically unhealthy. But more than a handful of people said things to quite add up when you actually look at them. So a guy named Tom Naughton made a counter-documentary, Fathead, which points out the many flaws in Super Size Me. And even going through the same experiment of eating nothing but McDonald's. Basically it boils down to that the guy in Super Size Me may have eaten way more than he showed on camera, and purposely did everything he could to become as unhealthy as possible. Because he was under the belief that by doing so he would get people to eat more healthy, and thus he was doing the world a favor. I think it's a good documentary simply for the fact that it showcases that the majority of society can easily be misled, and while it did end with the net good of people eating healthier, it does showcase the potential of a malicious actor.